Believe it or not, this topic does not get any easier to talk about no matter how much time has passed. It's been 2 years today that I have lost a friend, and I feel like it's finally time for me to talk about it, to talk about grief, to talk about loss, to talk about life after loss. These last couple of weeks, I've experienced loss again. I've experienced grief again. It's a feeling that I'm becoming very familiar with as I get older and as my loved ones get older. And I feel like I wanted to create a safe space for all of us to grieve and reflect on the life that was lost. So, to my friend Nyla, wherever you are now, I miss you so much every day. And for me, what that looks like is showing up and doing the things that you never got the opportunity to do. It is really hard to talk about. So, let's talk about grief. Let's talk about what grief is and how we deal with it and how we cope with it. When we talk about understanding grief, understand that it is not something that is one size fits all. Everyone experiences things differently and everyone processes things at their own time, and that is completely okay. And honestly, it's very hard. I remember the first time, at least to my memory, that I went to, wake or funeral was my grandmother's when I was in high school. And I think for me, and maybe for you as a person in your 20s, there are some types of loss that we can prepare for. I think for me, my grandmother being in her 90s, I knew, with her Alzheimer's and she fell, that at some point she was going to depart and she was going to be someone that I'd have to live my life without. And I think with things like that, although it's hard and it's sad, it's easier to process grief when we know what's coming. It gives us a why, it gives us a reason or thing to blame when we are dealing with the grief of their loss. When I lost my grandmother, it was sad and it was hard because we were really close, but I had time to prepare for that and I had time to spend my last days with her and experience all that there was to the life that she has. I got to learn her story and appreciate the life that was lived. And for me, and for some of you, being in our 20s, depending on your stage of life and depending on how old you are, being that I am in my 20s and my parents are in their 70s, there's a lot of things that I've had the opportunity, unfortunately, to mentally prepare myself for. When we're navigating grief in our 20s, it is such a delicate terrain because we're all in so many different stages of our lives and we have so many different things going on. And with the loss of life, there's new life, there's babies being born, and people are creating new families. So it's a lot to balance and it's a lot to understand. And for me, when I lost my friend, I honestly don't know how I felt. I I knew she was sick. I knew she had cancer, but she beat it. And she was in remission and the cancer was gone, and a piece of me was so relieved because I hated to see her in pain, but I also selfishly at that time didn't know how to deal with watching the pain from her, and I didn't know what I would do if we lost her. And I remember she was fine, you know. She was getting better, she was getting stronger. And then she had cancer again. This time, she was 17, and we didn't have the opportunity to prepare. At least I didn't have the opportunity to prepare for her loss. And I remember the day I was out at the mall shopping, pretty typical for me, and I got a call from my coach, Caroline, just to let me know that Nyla, she was in hospice and she had passed away. And in that moment, I felt so much anger. I felt a lot of hatred, and I felt so much guilt because, from my perspective, she had cancer once, she was strong, and this second cancer had nothing on her. She was going to be fine. She was going to recover. And I didn't reach out. I didn't say my goodbyes. I was busy with work. I had just got a new job. I was, so worried about me. And I just knew, well, Nyla's strong. She's going to be fine. I don't need to worry. And for the last 2 years, a piece of that guilt, especially at her funeral, which was probably one of the worst days of my life, has lived with me. And guilt is a big part of grief for me. And being in our 20s, we're learning so much about ourselves. We're learning so much about life. We're learning so much about the world. And for me, I learned that I'm selfish. I learned that I put me first. And usually I'd get on here and tell you that always put yourself first. You're the most important person. But in that moment, when Nyla was gone, and I had the opportunity to make my peace and to comfort her, and I chose not to, for petty reasons. I wasn't very well liked as a kid, probably because I was pretty bratty, but my swim coach was on the top list of people who, if she had a vendetta against me, I would totally understand why. Especially some of the girls that I used to swim with. We're not best friends. We were maybe back in the day, but we weren't anymore. And when those girls reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, Angel, like, we're doing a video for Nyla, just to tell her how much we love her." And I remember thinking, like, I'm too busy for this. Like, I don't have time to worry about this because she's going to be fine. So, November 17th, 2022, we lost Nyla. I've learned a lot from that experience, but the biggest thing that I want to talk about today is how to help you get through the grief, how to move on after loss, what moving on can look like for you, because it's not a one-size-fits-all experience. And honestly, I wish it was. I wish I can get on here and tell you, here are 5 steps to deal with grief and you're going to be amazing. But that's just not the case. Circumstantially, over the last few weeks, and with, the election, and with, my uncle passing away, and now with Nyla's anniversary of her death, I have been going through so much. Like, if you've talked to me in the last 2 weeks, you can tell I'm about to lose my mind. I am easily agitated. I am reacting big, reacting over the top, and I'm hurting. And I don't know how to deal with the hurt, and I don't know how to share with other people that I'm dealing with the hurt. Because you don't want to be weak. I don't want to be weak. I don't want to let people down who rely on me, so I just keep pushing through, and eventually I reached my breaking point, and it landed me right here. So let's talk about it. First thing I want to highlight is that growth is gradual. It's not linear. It's going to look different for you. It might be great some days, really rough other days. And for me, I remember when my mom called me last week and she told me that my uncle had passed away. And he had terminal cancer, and I knew that he was going to pass away, but I remember in that moment thinking, this must be such a hard experience for my dad, because that is his younger brother. So as an older sibling myself, you don't imagine grieving the loss of your sibling. You don't imagine grieving the loss of people younger than you or your age. I've noticed for me it's very overwhelming because I want to be there for my dad and I want to be there for myself, but knowing me, I'm going to make sure I put him first and making sure that he's okay and my mom's okay and my Aunt Vicky is okay. And for me, I almost isolated myself from the pain of losing my own uncle and focused on the fact that other people lost their brother, they lost their brother-in-law, they lost their husband, and focus on them. And I remember at Nyla's funeral, she was younger than me. She was a child, really. And I remember we lost her, and I just remember thinking, Okay. I have to be strong for the other girls who lost their friend because I couldn't deal with it if it was my friend that I lost, but I knew that was Raquel's friend and that was Gabby's friend and that was Leah's friend. So I need to be strong and a good friend for them because they lost their friend. I almost compartmentalize my feelings to deal with them as being an olive branch or a support for somebody else who's going through loss as well. I was in shock. My growth was not linear. I think I almost plateaued. I almost, for a very long time, didn't want to accept that Nyla was gone. And then I hit rock bottom. I had so many feelings. I felt like, why do I get to live this life if she doesn't get to live this life? She doesn't get to have, a 21st birthday. She doesn't get to get engaged. She doesn't get to get married because her life ended when she was just a kid. So I started taking a lot of the things that I had in my life. I wasn't happy with them. I wasn't appreciating them. And I realized she wouldn't want me to live life angry. She wouldn't want me to live life as a pessimist because anytime I spent with Nyla was a good time and she was a kind girl and we were always laughing and we were always singing and we were always dancing. And I know the best thing I can do is to live my life through the passion and life that she had for hers. It is so important when we lose a friend to celebrate their memory, to find joy in the things that we celebrated together. I think it's really easy to get dark and to shut down and to think about the worst, but sometimes, especially on days like today, and it's Nyla's, anniversary of her death, it's easy for me to remember the good times with her. It's easy for me to remember how much fun we had and the sleepovers we had and the competitions we did together. It's easy for me to reflect on the good now, but it wasn't then. And that's okay. It's never easy in the moment. Honestly, it might never get easier. Especially as a coach, I coach 17-year-old girls every year. And then every year they get to turn 18. And then they go to college and they get to grow up. And I remember Nyla didn't get to do those things. And I'm so happy that the girls that I coach now get to go forth and enjoy the life that is set for them because Nyla deserved to have that. So for me, it's like I get to have joy in knowing like Nyla loved swimming. I didn't love swimming. Anybody could tell you I hated swimming. But knowing how much she loved swimming has made me love to get other kids to love it. I love watching other kids be passionate about the things that she was because it heals me every day. And it makes me happy to see them happy. And seeing her light and love live through them means a lot to me. Celebrate their life, celebrate the memories, and reach out to the people who are in your support system. Reach out to the people who can support you through this time. I feel like my best friend Corey, I have called her maybe 15 times every single day for the last 2 weeks because I just need to laugh. I just need to talk to her. I just need to feel good. I need to just not let myself get down and dark, especially with seasonal depression, especially with it being dark at 4 p.m. I just need a little bit of light in my life, and I know that she is always going to fill that cup for me. I know my fiance is always going to fill that cup for me, and reaching out to people. I think I called my friend Isabella today and haven't talked to her in like years. Well, on the phone. I talk to her like every single day, but just talking to her on the phone just calmed me down. I just was explaining to her like what I'm going through and how I feel, and she validated my feelings and she said, Angel, it's okay to feel these things, but one, you don't have to wear the weight of the world and the grief on your shoulders. And it's okay to reach out for support when you need it. And that's something I'm so guilty of not doing, is I'm so scared to reach out for support when I need it that I don't. I don't reach out to my friends. I don't reach out to the people who I know support me. And I don't want that to be you. I want you to find peace and make peace with the loss. Another thing I'd like to recommend is finding coping strategies that work for you. And this can really reflect in all areas of your life because I've noticed for me, when I get overwhelmed or overstimulated or frustrated, that I don't really have an outlet. I don't have something that I do that makes me feel better. I don't have like a drink or snack or food or comfort, anything that makes me feel better. And as we get into our 20s, I highly recommend you find something that just clears your mind and makes you feel good. And I feel like for me recently, It's almost been fantasy, like fantasy books, fantasy stories, no sense of reality. I know I mentioned in my last video that I really enjoy reading manga, and I think reading love stories that are so over the top that I know will never happen just takes my mind off of things, because it just lets me escape to a world where everything is perfect and love is pure and everything is great. And I know we don't have that here, but sometimes it just makes me feel good to feel those feelings and emotions so authentically. I think isolation is something that is the worst thing that you can do. I think you need to move your body, exercise, get out there, and find methods that work for you, whether that's journaling, whether that's possibly talking to a therapist, if that's talking to your family. Do what works for you. That's a healthy coping strategy. Okay? Another topic similar to grief that I want to talk about from my perspective, because it's something that I think about a lot, is preparing for the loss of a parent or a loved one. So my dad, ever since I was a little girl, my dad has been sick. And as I've gotten older, he's gotten older, and, he's not the same as he used to be. And, during COVID, he got very sick, and it became very real to me that I will lose him, the same as I'll lose my mom and my siblings and everyone, because I'm so much younger than the people in my life. And I feel like for those of you who might also be adopted, or for those of you who are, in age gaps that are large from either your parents or your siblings or people in your life, it is a very isolating and lonely feeling to know that you will watch every single person that you love ultimately pass away. That is something for me that is really hard to process, that, my parents are in their 70s, even if they live till 100, I still won't have them always. I really want to open the conversation around preparing for loss. Something that I have been doing and taking advantage of with my circumstances is spending as much time with my loved ones as I can, because not only do I not know how much time I have with them, I don't know how much time they have with me. And I think that's a really good perspective to have. I know now, and here I am going to contradict myself like usual, but I know we have had a lot of conversations with the election about how, we're cutting people off and we're not keeping relationships. And if you don't agree with me, then I don't want to be around you. And I get that. And I validate that because I've done it myself. But when you're making those extreme decisions to cut ties with people and, eliminate people from your lives, remember how much time you have left with them. Every time I fight with my family, whether that's my mom, whether that's my sister, it always goes back to my mom. Y'all know how it is. Your mom's always being nosy. I think, you know what, I'm so mad. I'm not going home for Christmas. I'm not doing this. Leave me alone. Y'all don't know anything. I always ask myself, if this was the last conversation I had with this person, how would I feel? And although that might not be on the track of preparing for loss, ever since I started asking myself, how would I feel if this is the way that I left my relationship with X person or Y person or Z person? How would that make me feel? I've been feeling a lot differently with my relationships. And I think we take a lot of things for granted, obviously. And I want you to just think about that. If I hang up this phone and the person on the other end, I never hear their voice again, I never talk to them again, is this how I wanted to end things? I leave you with that because I thought that was very thought-provoking. I don't remember when I kind of got that feeling, but I just remember with my fiance now and with my dad being very sick, he always says hey, are you sure you don't want to go see your parents? Are you sure it's okay to do this? Are you sure it's okay to do that? Because he knows how important my relationship with my family is to me. And I can't stress enough the importance of having a spouse or a partner that respects you and understands the things that you need to be great. I need my family to be great, and him always giving me the opportunity to reach out to them and be around them and, get as much time with them as I can has been amazing. I really can't think of something better, so thank you, baby. I love you for that. But yeah, I think moving on is the hardest because you never want to forget anyone. You never want to lose space in your heart for the people that you love. And For me, I have spent a lot of time volunteering. I spent a lot of time with people who are less privileged than myself because I, for one, think time is the most important gift that we get in this life. And I want to use the time that I have here to make a difference in the lives of others. And when Nyla passed away, one of her requests was to make donations to Make-A-Wish Foundation in her honor. And I spent, the year after she had passed volunteering at Make-A-Wish almost every single week. And I thought that would make me feel better because it was like, okay, well, like, this is what she wanted. I'm going to honor her in this way. And unfortunately, I learned that it just made it hurt more to see other children in such frail and horrible situations because you never want to see a 5-year-old kid with cancer. Like, I literally think that's the worst thing ever in the whole world is like when kids are hurt. Like, it just makes me feel so like defeated. Like, anytime that a kid needs something and they can't have it or they have a terminal illness, it like stings. It's personal. And so I started with that. And then I started coaching again. And I thought, okay, like, maybe I'll find the joy in coaching. Maybe, giving advice to the next generation of kids, like I gave advice to her, will make me feel better. Maybe if I can be silly and have fun, that will keep the memories that I have of her alive. And it does. I always tell the girls that I coach to be grateful for what they have because you never know when it will be gone. And it fills me with what I needed to move on. And as I'm grieving with the loss of my uncle, finding peace, finding time for myself, finding things that I enjoy is what is going to, get me through it. Grief is hard. Loss is difficult. It's not fun. It's not easy. And whatever you're going through that made you click on this video to learn about life after loss, I'm so sorry that you lost a loved one. I hope you're doing okay. I really do. If you need something, if you need a friend, if you need a stranger to vent to, please let me know. Because it's so hard and isolating when you're experiencing something that maybe nobody around you has gone through yet. Maybe this is the first time you've lost someone and you don't know how to deal with it. You don't know how to open the conversation with it. You don't know how to reach out for the help that you need. And it's okay to take your time to identify what you need to get better. With that being said, when I first started my YouTube channel, I used to always end my videos by saying, like, in honor of my late friend Nyla, please donate to Make-A-Wish Foundation. So that will stand true for this video. But for you, Nyla, I also just want you to know that every day I live my life to the fullest. I take every opportunity that comes my way. And I never take anything for granted ever. Because I know you wouldn't want that. And every time I experience something that I know that you won't experience, I accept it. And I'm grateful. And I am so happy that I got to love you while you were here. You're an amazing friend. You are an amazing friend. You always were. And you were a stickler because I'm always running late and you're always yelling at me about when I was going to be at practice. And girl, if I told you I wish I was never at practice, you would have killed me. But thank you so much for being a part of my life and living on with me every day and making me the person that I am today. Because without you, I wouldn't be me. And I'm so grateful that I got to love you while I could. So wherever you are, Nyla, I love you. We all love you. We all miss you. Honestly, wherever you are, I hope you are not in pain anymore. I hope you're happy. And I hope you're safe. And I love you so much. I always will. Thank you for giving me the space to grieve with you all. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to face reality that I could not face 2 years ago. And every year, Nyla, we will honor you in our own way. And I miss you like crazy. I miss all the girls. I miss what life was like when we were all together. And I took it for granted. And I promise you, I will never do that again. Thank you. And good night.